Irish dart that the Irish Bonnocks might have used. It's a short spear. Now, when I did experiments with it, trying without feathers, it was just going to go all over the place. You know, there was no balance to it. So I came across some 13th century manuscript sources from Europe which showed their javelins had feathers on the end. Then I tried it with feathers, and well, we'll see how straight it flies.
Do you want a blue?
Perfect.
You can see there, you know, it's got great range, great power. That's buried probably 3 or 4 inches into the soil. So, and I'm not even trained.
That would do damage. And what other weapons have we here today?
Well, we've got a selection of weapons, a lot from the Viking Age and from the early Norman Age. This would have been like a typical one-handed battle axe. Very light, very fast. Their combat would have been so much would be to do with speed. Now you see in the cartoons and some of the manuscripts and horrible 1970s movies, Vikings have these huge, big, heavy, double-headed battle axes. I have to tell you, if you try and lift one of those in a fight, your opponent with one of these would have already hit you 10 times before you get it over your head. So lightness and speed was
key.
Was key. An example of that could be found here in the Stane axe here. And this Stane axe head was designed on one that they found in a log canoe at the bottom of Loch Carb about 3 or 4 years ago. And it's very thin, very light. The wooden shaft would be made from cherry wood. And this would have allowed them to, this was the lightest hardwood available to them. So it was all about speed. You can gauge from that choice of material, it was all about speed. Not about, you know, necessarily bludgeoning people in heavy armour.
I see that there's quite a lot of arrows here on the table. Did the Vikings use arrows and bows?
Well, the Irish word for bow comes from the Danish word for bow. So even though we have Bronze Age remains of arrowheads, we don't really have a tradition of archery here until the Vikings bring it back. That's where the archaeological information is at the moment. It might change next week. We might find something. We just don't know. So we have a variety of materials here. So I'll make quite a few of my own arrows. If you go to a museum where they might have an actual medieval arrow, you'll find that you often find knots still on the wood. They weren't expertly turned like modern arrows. This is holly. And what you do is you take holly, you season it. Holly is great because it's got no pith. It's solid all the way through. Very strong, very light, very flexible. And use a simple tool like this. And if you find a bend in the wood, you just heat the wood up, softens the fibres. Just lodge it in this little tool and just bend it as straight as that, you know. And it doesn't have to be that straight. I mean, an arrow as crooked as this will fly as straight as a modern shaft arrow like that. Okay, it won't fly exactly as straight. The feathers will make it revolve around, but really, you know, you're not talking much of a difference if your target is a deer or a human being. You know, it's not going to be that. It's going to be close enough.
Very good. And of course, these are all the offensive weapons. You have defensive weapons as well, and you're wearing some armour there.
Yes, indeed. This would have been it's chain mail. It's riveted. If you look closely out there, you'll notice that quite a few of the rings are actually made from taking a round ring, cutting it in half, and overlapping them, boring a hole through it, and tapping in a tiny rivet, and then doing that 30,000 times more.
Wow. And how expensive would that have been in Viking times? That would have been a very expensive piece of kit.
You would have to be the richest of the rich to be able to afford something like this. There wasn't simply enough iron to go around for everybody, you know. Some countries were richer. Britain was very rich in iron, you know, so they had a lot more of it. Much more than Scandinavia, for example.
What would the poor warriors have worn then?
Well, if you look at the old literature, they often mention like the Cuchulainn and other sources. Now this was women from 12th century sources, you know. They document people wearing up to 35 layers of linen in what might be called a cotoon or perhaps an akiton. Would that be what it was?
Yeah.
And like a gambus. Yeah. And even our shields now have got linen covers on them. It's just 1 or 2 layers, and it's really effective. The linen is a very good material for withstanding cuts.
Right.
So it would be very effective. Very hot though, very hot.
And these helmets, would they be something similar then to the chainmail? They'd have been very expensive.
They would be very expensive, and you know what? We don't really have. I doubt the Irish necessarily had any before the Vikings came. Any
leather helmets.
Perhaps leather helmets, something like that. Yeah, but we don't have much evidence. If at all. The Vikings didn't even have that many of them. Yes. I think there's one source from Europe, from Germany, of some mercenaries, and it actually mentions that they had helmets. You know, so obviously
It was noteworthy to say they come to them.
Get
Yeah.
back to how costly iron was. It's been estimated that one Viking sword would cost about 40 capital in medieval times, which was ridiculous.
A huge investment.
And that'd be the equivalent today of owning a Ferrari. So that's the kind of money you're talking about for one sword.
So no horns.
No horns, no. Completely impractical. I think we can blame Wagner for the horns, the Wagnerian operas. Completely impractical. A helmet is designed to deflect blows, usually some sort of conical shape. So horns in a helmet